Welcome to Los Compas Lounge, a PSA for brown men.
We are your hosts. This is Raul.
This is Javier.
My name is Reuven, and this is a podcast about brown men talking about issues that matter to you. We talk about things that we don't usually talk about in the brown communities. We're just three regular compas sharing our experiences to inspire positive change. Compa, pull up a seat. We have one ready for you. You know, it's pretty wild, man. I mean, these last basically almost it feels like this entire year, but I guess officially for us here in the US it began, I guess, at least for me, like around March. And basically what we're talking about is this global pandemic, and this is a serious there's obviously, it's a serious topic right here, and I think it's something that we should talk about, and how it's affected us personally, not just on the global scale, but just us as three compas. What do you guys think?
It's affected everybody differently.
So I think the main question is probably a two-part question, right? So if we think about it in terms of we are brown men, and how has the pandemic affected us in terms of our sanity or insanity or whatever it may be, and also related to that, perhaps if we're in a position to do something positive or constructive in our lives, what did we do? So let's pick it up right there.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, at first it was like I thinking, oh man, this is awesome. I get to work from home. It's like at work, they told us first it was optional. They said, you know what, if you don't want to come in, you could work from home, those that are able to work from home. And I think that was like about the first week or something like that, probably like mid-March where we started. And then after, I mean, I think it was a government mandate that you don't go into the office and I was thinking, okay, it's going to be cool. I had a few other, because I do side jobs also in addition to having a full-time job. And I go, okay, I'm able to meet with my other clients without having to call in sick or anything. But it just kept going and going, and it's still going,
Yeah. Weren't we joking about this? Like, all right, man, we get to drink, some beers during the day and still get paid and stuff like that. And then after a while, we're like, shoot, man, we're like spending more money on beer.
Oh man, it's true. I mean, and it's weird how it affected, my family and I, because just and what I'm doing positively is wearing this mask right here, man. I mean, I know it's a little annoying and everything, and but the reality is, dude, it for me, it's about being selfless and about having enough love in yourself to love other people. Because you know what, maybe you might not be affected by it, but and you might have it or might not have it, but just think of the people that you might accidentally infect if you do have it. And I'm thinking about our elders, the elderly, or the kids, or the people who, whose immune systems are compromised. Like myself, man, I have diabetes. And it could affect me if someone just accidentally coughs on me or whatever. So for me, this is something really minor to do, that can, in theory, help a lot of people. And saying that, I'm going to take it off because I'm in my office by myself.
No, and I think you're trying to demonstrate, at least
the
a
normal
visual of like,
or the new reality.
yeah, it's part of our normal or new reality. Yeah, and I think that there, although we're compas and we're going to be joking around and talking about some pretty cool heavy duty topics, this is something serious, especially for the brown community.
My father, it seems like a lot of times with men, they don't take as much precaution, So I went to go visit my parents, and my mom, she keeps her distance. She just lifted up her foot so I could just tap her foot instead of giving her a hug or something. And I guess I try to do for my dad, just like, try to like fist pump him or something. And my dad, he's never been, well, I didn't grow up I didn't grow up in those families that you hug everybody, But so my dad, he just grabbed me and he hugged me, I mean, really, it was in the beginning, like I really didn't I didn't think much of it. I go, if he's not afraid to hug me, I'm not afraid to hug him either.
And it's kind of weird, compa, that we as men, right? There's obviously that issue of fuck. It's kind of weird, because I didn't grow up hugging either. So when I met my wife and her entire family, all her 8 siblings, and all of their kids and tias and everybody and their mom,
So
it's a
difficult
hug
right
and
now, huh?
practically almost a kiss on the cheek. So
Yeah, it's for her whole
yeah, yeah, well,
family.
yeah, it's difficult for my wife and whatnot, and exactly, and it kind of sucks. But that's some deep stuff there too, where we have to, as men, sometimes negotiate those types of feelings of,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm not gonna hug another man, but but here I am, hugging my father-in-law and buen abrazo with everybody and the kids. So
Hey,
slowly but
dude,
surely,
it
my wife's
happened to me
turning me
too,
into
man.
a
I
big time
remember when I
hugger,
first met
and
my wife,
I think
and
I'm
then every
okay.
time it was time to leave, I start getting nervous. Oh man, everybody's gonna want to come and hug me, and I just tell my wife, you know what? I go, I'll wait for you in the car. Here, give me something to carry so that this way they don't hug me, you know. And my wife's, what's wrong with hugging? I go, I just didn't grow up
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that, you
yeah.
know.
It's so seriously ironic. It's the same thing for me too, man. I mean, we weren't big huggers in my family. I mean, my abuelita, she hugged everyone. And I had to learn how to do that too, Javi. It's just like it was weird, but I mean, and now I'm used to it. And like you were saying, Raul, it's really hard for my wife. My wife's grandfather passed away in February, just as all this was slowly starting to come out, and and I wasn't really taking it too seriously. I'm like, yeah, yeah, we've had this before, and then nothing ever materializes of it. And then Marisa calls me one day, she's like, you better go get, better get some food, blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I'm like, you know what? I might as well go get some. I went to Costco. Bad decisions, dude. Never go to Costco during the pandemic. Not a good thing. I mean, people are like trying to get these the toilet paper and water. I'm like, what the hell do we need toilet paper in a pandemic for? I don't know. And water. I'm not thinking water. What the hell do we need water for? We have a faucet, but you don't think right, I guess. But bottom line is though, there was a shortage of food, man, or a shortage of certain supplies, and I was like, dude, this is serious. Whether it's necessary, like these different supplies or whatever, that doesn't matter. The reality is, this is the reality. People are stockpiling, and I'm like, dude, I didn't take it seriously enough, and I guess now that's why I'm taking it seriously, and um, because luckily it sounds twisted, dude. I mean, fortunately, uh, my wife's abuelito passed away before uh, before the state of Texas decided to like not have any, started to close down, so they were actually able to have a real wake, and a real funeral, proper funeral and whatnot, because I've had friends up here in the Bay Area whose family members or friends have passed away, and they can't have
Yeah, not even in the not even in the hospital. You can't even visit them in the hospital either.
yeah, dude. I mean, and that's a psychological toll right there, dude. I mean, you can't have real closure, or like you were saying, Javi, you can't even visit your loved one in the hospital to give them some kind of support. I mean, that's just pretty wild to me.
Well, you know what? We started off talking about hugging and touching, but that, it's not far from the topic, right? If you think about it, we're social people, we're social beings, the human race, and we're so used to the touch, the hug, the kiss, the whatever it may be. And you just mentioned in terms of psychology, right? So, like, what do we do? How is this really affecting us? What are we doing to cope
Isolation,
with
the
the not
isolation,
touching?
the
Yeah,
quarantine,
the
it's
isolation. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I go I go walking like on a regular basis daily, and when I and here's the way that people are starting to lax. Like I remember when it first happened. I mean, I'd wear the mask like all the time, I would say about like probably 100% of the people that I came across were wearing masks. Today, this morning, I just came back, and I would say about 20% of the people were wearing masks. I wear my mask. I have a mask, another one that I have wear this one, but I have another one that I put a little like like a little rubber band in the back, so that this way. Well, I have the real kind, but that kind what I hate is because normally I wear glasses, especially, and so it fogs them up, and so then I just have one, and then when I'm when I see people nearby, then I'll put it up like this, so that this way, what you said, like respect, and everything, and then funny thing, because one time I was walking and I sneezed, and I was like taboo. Everybody like ran away, like tried to get away from me, like, and it was just pollen and everything. I mean, it has nothing to do with COVID, but it was, yeah. It's like now I'm afraid to sneeze in public. It's like,
And look what you said, Javi. It's like we were serious as a culture or society, at least in here in California, or at least in your area, and then here we are, summertime, and our numbers have spiked, and people are laxing. So it's just another reason to just precaution and take care of yourself. And there's only so much you can do as a person to control what you ought to do and keep your family safe and keep yourself safe.
I've been reading a lot of articles, and not just from magazines, but also from academic journals and things like that. And you know, this pandemic is affecting the Chicano Latino community very disproportionately. I mean, some of the ones that I've been reading is like, it's like, you know, 49% of the cases uh, are Latinos, and it also disproportionately affects all people of color. It just looks like out of the people of color, it's the Latinos that are getting affected most, and then you have the Native Americans, you have the African Americans, and the question is why? Why is it affecting our community and in general the brown community, meaning all people of color? Why is it affecting our communities
And
so
that's a good question that we
disproportionately?
pose to our listeners, right? Think why, what's going on, what is that we can control in terms of our own health and hygiene habits, and also question your community or your resources in your government. It's like, why are we able in some cases to go to the other side of the tracks and go get tested and whatnot, and then you come to the east side or the west side, and shit, there's no testing, or the supplies or the resources are limited. So, I mean, without us getting too crazy in terms of political conversation here, I think that question is something for all of our compas who are listening. Why? Why? And then get the courage to do something, or at least, at minimum, protect your family and yourself.
like we said, like, um, we like to, be very alegres, like, hug each other and everything, but I have been, we have been keeping our distances, and
And
it's hard.
stubborn too, and this is nothing to my tocayo, like I love your dad, but not to use him as an example, he's like, vente cabrón, let me hug you.
Yeah.
And shit, my dad's the
I,
same
I
way, and
I
and
think
my
it was
and
more like you
you
said,
know
like being defiant, more
yeah,
like
yeah,
stubborn, more like,
yeah.
because it's like, oh, they tell me I can't hug you, I'm gonna hug you.
For me, I look at it as social distancing, but at the same time, it's not being social distance. You're physically distancing. Doesn't mean that you have to be socially distant from one another. I mean, it's just we just can't physically be close to each other, but we can still communicate with folks. I mean, whether it's doing the Zoom cast, or whether it's like what we've been doing here with our neighbors. We just hang out in the front yards. We each have our front yards, and we just do our communal barbecue. But but we stay 6 to 12 feet apart, and we're still talking, yelling at each other, literally. But we're doing that. Or for me, I mean, like you guys know, my mother still lives in L.A. and I live up here, in the Oakland Bay area. So just been calling my mom up more than usual, just to make sure she's doing good. And for me, it's like, the question I think that Raul put out there is like, well, what are we doing to make it better? Because you can either, you know, bitch and complain about it, or you can try to be productive and do things, and better yourself and better your family, because this pandemic is right here, right now, but the future is still going to be there. So whatever we do or do not do right now is going to affect us and our family 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. So, I mean, take advantage of this opportunity. I mean, it sucks. It really does suck for a lot of people. I understand that. But what are we doing for ourselves and for our families?
And now, a Brown and Proud PSA.
Go to our website, loscompaslounge.com, to links for resources for today's episode.
And Ruben, that's a question or something that I've been struggling with here because, for example, in my wife's family, or even my friends, other friends, and my family, and just family in general, they're like, "Ooh, we haven't seen each other. We love you. We miss you. Blah blah blah," which is cool. I'm not dogging that. I'm simply saying that my wife and I kind of took a stand. My wife's in the medical field, so she sees this shit, firsthand. So, our thing is family first, meaning our kids, my wife, my immediate family. And one of the things my wife and I talk about is, you know what? This will pass, right? And it's a small sacrifice. Maybe a year, maybe more, but guess what? We get to enjoy the rest of our lives. Knock on wood, right? To the rest of our lives, not only immediate family, but with our uh, extended family. Hopefully, a vaccine kicks in a year or whatever it is. But it's a tiny sacrifice. Ruben talked about people bitching and crying because they're not wearing the mask or whatever it may be. That's cool, man. Do what you got to do, but not, don't come to my house like, bitching and crying. Or, I love my family or my extended family. It's like, I'll hang out with you guys, but I can't do it. I'm taking a stand with my kids and my wife, and I'm taking a stand because I'm playing the long term game, not immediate fulfillment of, oh fuck, let's have a little barbecue and we don't wear a mask and let's not social distance and all that. So that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, no. So I heard that the pandemic of 1918 lasted about 2 years, and that it subsided, but then it came back. So that when you kind of take the total time, there was about like 2 years. So I've been preparing my kids also sometimes, like now during my lunch break, because I always, when I was at work, I would go to walks during my lunch break, and so now I'll take my kids like one at a time. I'll go, and it's fun because I get to have like one-on-one time with, and I just been telling them, you know what, I go, this happened before 1918, and that time it lasted like 2 years, and it's just kind of like planting a little seed in their head that it's like, just be prepared, start getting psychologically prepared for the long run. It's funny because my boys, they're more into video games, and they're kind of like liking it, and they even talk to their cousins and classmates online playing game. But my daughter, she was in soccer, and she's like so she's a lot more athletic, and so she's the one that likes to go on walks more, like all the time. Like with the boys, I kind of have to a little bit, even like, it's your turn today, you have to go with me today, you know. Yeah, with my daughter, oh,
The realities of being a father.
no. And then what's funny is that sometimes, okay, my daughter wants to go, and so now let's say it's one of my sons. I go, okay, it's your turn, can I go? And I go, you know what, I go, I want some one-on-one time. It's like, I mean, not that I don't want her to go, but I have different conversations when I'm one-on-one with one of my boys or my girl. So it's just like I go, and then there's times, because so there's 5 days. So I said one day I'm going to go by myself. one day with one, another, and then another day with all of us together. And so we kind of have like a little rotating schedule. And so, I mean, it works out pretty good that way. Mhm.
That's pretty awesome. You know, you're making a very conscious effort to make an education, a learning moment.
But you know what, Javi? That's a very important thing. I mean, the the emotional psychological aspect of it, because being cooped up inside a house does mess with your head, man. And there's been tons and tons of studies outside of the COVID, just tons and tons of studies about the lack of sunlight that people get messes with their emotions and their mentality, because vitamin D isn't like a supplement per se, but you basically, vitamin D is already inside you, and it's the sun hitting your skin that activates it, and you get, these endorphins and dopamines, which are activated, those happy, those happy chemicals naturally inside you. And if you're not outside to, get that sun, you do get, you do start feeling down, and and that's, I think, what's like a double-edged sword, is like, in order to feel happier, we need the sun, but we have to be really conscientious about what we do outside, wearing the masks, but still being able to get that sun. And especially for you and your daughter, I mean, look, I mean, it seems like that, being active, like you, Javi, being active is a big part of of how you stay emotionally, stable, or positive and happy, and for me too. I mean, I would love to be outdoors, man. I love being outdoors, and so this is affecting me um, in a negative way in that aspect. Luckily I have my dog, and I walk the dog on an almost daily basis, but like you, my stepdaughter, she loves it, man. I mean, she's like a homebody, She's like, you know what? This is perfect for me. So she, yeah, exactly, dude, exactly. But, so I mean, it's perfect for her, and not for me, But, once again, that's a different reality, and it's like, it's just weird. Like, yesterday, I was watching a Netflix, talking about Netflix earlier, and the DVDs. I have a Netflix DVD on a. It was a TED Talk, and one of the people that was speaking was a doctor. His name literally is Doctor Brilliant. His last name is Brilliant, and this was back in the late '90s, and basically he got his claim to fame by helping reduce or eliminate smallpox in India back in the 70s or 80s, something like that. And his talk was about a possible pandemic, because back in the late 90s we had that bird flu thing. I don't know if you guys remember it, but we had this bird flu thing. It never really got to the U.S., but he was working on that, and he was saying, what we as a nation need, is a national system put in place to make sure that when a pandemic happens, we're prepared for it. And he said the two things you need is, one, early detection, and having the systems in place to take care of, the people that are infected. And then this was back in the late 90s. It's been close to 20 years. We didn't do that as a nation state, and I think that's part of the reason we're at where we're at. And I think it's just basic things like, what do we need to do as individuals, man? I mean, like, one, we need to take this shit seriously, dude. It's real. We have to get the correct information. And none of this fake news. Get the correct information. Go get tested. It's free. You can get tested for free. Most cities and counties have that in place. Wash your hands and your face. 20 seconds. That's all it takes, man. Wear your masks. And stay 6 to 12 feet away from people.
Play the long game.
Yeah, eat healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, people don't think about this, but what you put into your body really does make a difference. I mean, eating
Yeah,
healthy,
build up your immune
and
system.
exercising.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, those are.
And most importantly, what all of us have been talking about, Teach your children, teach your family, teach your friends, teach your coworkers, teach them, and pass along this information. I think that's what we should do, not as responsible citizens or anything like that. We should just do that because we're human beings.
You know what? The funny thing is that these are things that we should be doing anyways, even without, wash your hands, wash your face,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you kn- I don't know about, the wearing the mask all the time, but I'm right now, of course, but I'm saying like some of the things are like build up your immune system, eat healthy. Like all this stuff is good advice with or without a pandemic. We should be doing all of this anyway, and being like spending family time. This has forced us to spend family time a lot more.
And Javi, just one thing I appreciate a lot was make more Zoom calls with and more happy hours with friends and family. It's totally crazy and nuts that we needed to have this pandemic to kind of wake us up and say, shit, the important things in life are family,
Yeah.
friends, people.
And the technology's
yeah,
here. We
yeah,
never did
exactly.
this before the pandemic.
I know. and it's funny how we as three compas, we started our podcast, during the pandemic because we thought we had something to say and we wanted to spend some time with each other in terms of sharing and growing and really contributing to the community.
Yeah, no, I remember like having Skype calls with both of you, but just as individuals. Like Raul, like before the pandemic, sometimes on a weekend we be partying, having a Skype. Also with Ruben, me and you. But like this as a group, and we always say, oh, it'd be cool to get the group of us. The way that sometimes we always send each other texts and everything. We're all texting and everything, and we're all saying, oh, it'd be cool to have a virtual call with all of us, and would be cool, but we never did it.
I know. Then we sober up and we're like, oh, okay.
Everybody forgets.
Everybody forgets. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the twistedly beautiful thing about this damn pandemic, man. Mother Nature just slapped us around silly and said, you know what? You guys are messing with me too much. You guys aren't listening to me. I'm gonna shut you guys down. And I've been once again reading a lot of different articles, and whatnot. And there's been satellite images of different parts of the world that you weren't able to see prior to it because there was so much pollution in the air. I mean, even like in LA, the air quality is a heck of a lot better, or at least it was when I was down there a couple weeks ago. Man, it felt like it was LA of old, but it's like Mother Nature's cleansing herself, dude. And Mother Nature slapping us around, telling us, you know what? You guys got to clean up your act. Otherwise, I'll have to do this again.
Well, you know what?
You
I
know?
gotta maybe say a not such popular thing, but there's been some. This could be a little bit conspiracy theory or whatever, but I've been hearing, or I guess it depends the types of um, articles that I've been reading, but that there's some possibility that this was not a natural born virus, that it was that in the Wuhan virology lab that they were experimenting or trying to find something, a way to control a virus, and they think that it might have somehow accidentally somehow got out of the lab, because that what I heard is that this virus, it spreads a lot easy in when in the dark with artificial light, like in the lab environment, and so that in the sunlight, somehow that in the sunlight it doesn't know how to live, or that it dies more easier during the sunlight or something like that, but those are
Like,
just.
and you know what, Javi, that's valid. Those kind of theories come out here and there. And all I would advise, to you and to our listeners is, look for the different sources. Make sure it doesn't matter their origins and whether it's a conspiracy or an unpopular or popular idea of the origins of the virus. We're in it here today. This is where we're at. And hey, this is what we got. And whether it's Mother Nature or man-made, we have to deal with it. And that's the part that matters, I think, at this point in our
Yeah,
lives.
I agree. I mean, it's like regardless of the source, regardless of how it started, we have to deal with it, and so might as well be concentrating on the solution versus, oh, what caused it, who caused it, and you just spend a lot of energy like unnecessarily that it could be spent on the solution.
Yeah, and you end up spinning your wheels, and you end up getting pissed off and politicizing the whole thing. And frankly, we have enough of that already. And I think for our purposes, we want to talk to all the brown men out there, whatever background you're in, Latino or African American or Native American, but it affects us all in different ways. And there's some deep, machismo issues that sometimes we need to deal with, and we're not comfortable when dealing with it. But this is an opportunity to embrace more of the soft side. Embrace that soft side where you're able to be more caring, more nurturing to your kids, and don't forget that this is the reality, and you're in control to navigate, your family and keep them safe during this time.
It'd be nice if we could maybe just quickly just uh, go back to it, because that we're about talking about the issue, but talking about a positive solution or possible positive solutions. And I think we've all mentioned that. I mean, when we talked about our one, like you just finished saying, Raul, it's like all of us to a certain extent, you know, didn't necessarily take it seriously in the beginning. I'm definitely guilty of that with having to go to Costco and realizing there's no damn food there, you know. But it became serious, and it took my wife multiple knocks to the head, even though she was in Texas and I was here in California, to make me take it seriously. It's like, okay, Rubens, get out of your ego and start thinking about your family first. And I got all the supplies I needed. I thought about my mom. Thought about my brother. My brother's out in Colorado, so we've been in contact a lot more. Yeah, it's not social distancing; it's physical distancing, and I think we've all shown that we found ways to get closer and using technologies such as Zoom or the telephone to stay in contact with people and to remind us of our humanity.
I'm going to circle back to something that you said, Raul, that I think that has a lot to do with this, what you said about the machismo. I think that, like, sometimes we think like, hell no, this little virus can't kick my ass. I'm strong, and so, and I think that goes through a lot of like people's heads, or mostly men, that they say like, it's like, I'm not going to let this little virus, but it's not about how strong you are. I mean, it it's a virus, I mean, it's like, if you get it, I mean, it could kick your ass, and yeah, so they say, yeah, we need to take this serious, and just be prepared, be prepared to be like this in isolation or quarantine like this. I would say through the end of the year and beyond, I mean, it's like, I think it's going to be more than a year, I'll consider it a year in March, because that's when my job, when my job, told us that to start working from home, and I don't know. I, I don't see like an end to this coming like within the next couple months. I think it's going to be beyond the summer, and probably like through November. So,
And Javi, what's gonna suck is we're gonna hit flu season, and it's gonna suck big donkey. You know what? Because all the care providers, the healthcare providers, have to deal with flu symptoms, like the true flu, and then COVID-19 symptoms, and it's gonna knock us. It's gonna do something to
hey,
us.
Raul, and right now, I mean, I don't know if your wife talks to you about it, but like, what percentage does she still see? Like, she's a primary care physician, right? Does she, like, you can't even do your physicals and like all that stuff, right? I always say,
It's mostly telephone. Those
is it
kinds
like
of
90% of her cases are COVID related, or like?
Well, yes and no. right now her clinic, community clinic took a stand and said we're going to do testing. So they opened up
Okay.
testing in Madera, right?
Uh-huh.
So everything is all about testing, and the clinic's pretty big. I think there's like 16 sites. So they try to do like they do some physical contacts, but mostly over the phone, telephone. But for my wife, she's in charge. They put her in charge of all the employees, right? So in terms of their testing and screening, and then putting them off or clearing them to return to work. So that has her super super busy. And thank God that originally she was part of the staff members who would do the screenings and see the general population. And now there's this really big need. It's like, wow, crap, there's 16 sites, and it's probably over 100 employees or whatever the number is, and it's affecting all of the employees. And they're it's considered an essential business, and these people are doing their thing, and whether it's a receptionist or a nurse practitioner, my wife is in charge of clearing them and checking them out. But I don't know if I don't think I have a percentage, but I could tell you that it's the clinic itself it took a stand. It's taking a stand to be like, we need to do testing, we need to do contact tracing, we need to be supportive of our people, because this clinic really came out of, back in the days, out of a need that no private practice wanted to see the campesinos or the brown people in Madera. So there was a huge need, 20, 30 years ago. And it's just grown and grown and grown. And here we are during this pandemic, where my wife is, working in her hometown, and she deals with this stuff, and you get, it's all brown folks, it's all brown folks, and it's kind of scary for her, sometimes, because we do have little kids, and for us right away, we were doing the reading, we were doing the education. We took this very serious early on, especially because I know my wife was at the front lines. So we, again, one of the things positive is looking at this as a long term reality, long game here. And it brought my family closer. It brought me to the forefront in terms of thinking family first. That's what's important. Not getting into arguments or politicizing the whole situation, but rather, what can I do as a man to support my wife, support my kids, and be tolerant, be respectful of other people, even in our own family, who perhaps are, they believe in this pandemic, like, oh, maybe this was a planned situation that was released, not necessarily the Wuhan theory that you talked about earlier, Javi, but this whole thing about pandemic. I don't know if you heard about it, but that stuff it's essentially crap, right? And I was fortunate, and I'm fortunate to be grounded, be more tolerant, and not um, get into arguments or a physical fight with somebody who's not wearing a mask or whatever. I just have to be humble and just say, it's cool, man. That's their thing. I'm in control of my own situation, and that's what matters most. Those lessons for me were, there's something that I've looked at super positive, man. And thinking of which, right, or talking about, who would have thought, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? We'd be talking about this stuff in the pandemic, and
be in this situation.
be in this situation and talking about stuff that, here we are, grown men, in our 40s, and, we're questioning our machismo or our role in our families and what we're grateful for, right?
Yeah, I know, like I tell my son, when I go, you know what? I go, this is like crazy. I go, it's, I could never tell you like, oh, I remember when I went through my pandemic when I was your age. This is nothing that, I mean, we're all going through this at the same time. It's like we're learning, adapting, and, it's like we just have to muscle through it.
And the positive thing about this, and both of you have mentioned it, is the use of technology. I mean, it has been here long enough that we as a society, we as businessmen, as people that work in different industries, haven't utilized technology as we can and as we should have. And it's sad that it took this pandemic for us to take that leap, jump into the pool as opposed to just keep on dangling our toes inside of it. But, we did it, and, but not every job affords that. I mean, there's still people that are working at the supermarkets, working at Target, working at Walmart, picking fruits. Who are these folks? These are predominantly working class people. They're predominantly people of color. And when we talked about earlier, why is it that there's a disproportionate number of Chicano, Latino, Black folk, Native Americans, Asian Americans? Is because for the most part, unfortunately, we're in that category of workers, and it's yeah, it's a class issue, it's systemic, and we have one pandemic we're going through right now. It's a viral pandemic, but there's another larger pandemic that we've been going through for a number of couple hundreds of years, and that's systemic racism. And this next episode, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the larger pandemic known as institutional racism. We're going to be talking about Black Lives Matter, and how that affects us as a brown men, as a brown community. So, compas, this has been a really, really great discussion. Thank you, compas.
Yeah, be safe.
Stay strong.
Until next time, compas, peace be with you.